Adding one specific ingredient to your water can measurably increase nitric oxide production, the exact same molecule targeted directly by prescription erectile dysfunction medication, and most men have absolutely no idea this connection exists. Plain water hydrates you effectively, which matters, but it does essentially nothing to specifically support the blood flow mechanisms that become considerably more relevant after 50. Today, we're reviewing what the actual evidence shows about nitrate-rich additions to your daily water intake, how strong that evidence genuinely is for each specific option, and which choices are backed by real, published research rather than aggressive online marketing built around a kernel of legitimate science stretched far beyond what it actually supports. Nitric oxide is the specific molecule responsible for signaling smooth muscle within your blood vessel walls to relax. And that relaxation is precisely what allows a rapid, substantial increase in blood flow whenever your body needs it, whether that's during exercise in response to arousal or simply as part of healthy everyday circulation. This entire process underlies erectile function directly, plays a meaningful role in overall blood pressure regulation, and connects closely to exercise performance and general cardiovascular health as well. As men move through their 50s and beyond, the body's natural capacity to produce nitric oxide efficiently becomes measurably less robust, a well-documented process tied to gradually declining endothelial function, meaning the health and responsiveness of the delicate cellular lining found inside every blood vessel throughout your entire body. This is precisely why nitrate-rich additions to your regular water intake carry considerably more genuine relevance after 50 than they would for a healthy 25-year-old, whose natural nitric oxide production is typically still functioning quite robustly on its own without any additional dietary support required. Before continuing any further, a brief but genuinely important note that applies throughout this entire video. Several of the specific options discussed today can meaningfully interact with blood pressure medication or prescribed blood thinners, given their own independent effects on blood vessel function, and in some cases, blood clotting. Men currently taking either category of medication should genuinely discuss any of these additions directly with their doctor before making them a consistent daily habit, since the combined effect of prescription medication alongside these specific dietary additions hasn't always been thoroughly studied together in controlled research, meaning caution is warranted even where individual risk appears modest. Coming in at number 1 on this list, beetroot, whether consumed as juice or mixed into water as a concentrated powder. This particular option has by a meaningful margin the strongest and most directly relevant research behind it among everything we'll discuss throughout this entire video. Beets are exceptionally rich in dietary nitrates, and your body converts these nitrates through a specific, well-understood biochemical pathway, first into nitrite through the action of particular bacteria naturally present in your mouth, and then further into active nitric oxide, once that nitrite is absorbed into your bloodstream and processed accordingly. Multiple controlled clinical studies have consistently found measurable, meaningful improvements in blood pressure and exercise performance following regular beet juice consumption, with these effects appearing relatively quickly, often within just a few hours of intake in controlled research settings. Several studies have gone further, specifically examining beet juice or concentrated nitrate supplementation in relation to erectile function markers directly, consistently finding genuinely improved blood flow measurements in participants, though it's worth being appropriately precise here. Since large-scale randomized controlled trials, specifically measuring erectile function itself as the primary studied outcome, remain somewhat limited compared to the broader body of research on nitrates and general vascular function, there's a genuinely practical detail worth understanding clearly here, one that surprises a considerable number of people when they first learn it. Using antibacterial mouthwash around roughly the same time as consuming nitrate-rich beet juice can meaningfully blunt this entire beneficial effect, since that mouthwash directly kills the specific oral bacteria responsible for that crucial first conversion step in the pathway just described. A genuinely reasonable, evidence-aligned approach involves roughly 4 to 8 ounces of beet juice daily, or alternatively, a teaspoon of concentrated beetroot powder mixed thoroughly into a glass of water, consumed consistently once each day rather than sporadically whenever remembered. Number 2 on this list is pomegranate juice, and it's worth understanding up front that this option works through a genuinely different biochemical mechanism than beets do specifically. Pomegranate is exceptionally rich in polyphenol antioxidants, compounds that help protect nitric oxide from breaking down prematurely once your body has already produced it, rather than directly supplying the raw nitrate material that beets provide as their primary mechanism of action. A frequently cited clinical trial found genuinely meaningful improvement in erectile function scores, specifically among men who consumed pomegranate juice daily over a period of several weeks, compared directly against a placebo group receiving an inactive beverage. This represents genuine, dedicated clinical research focused specifically on erectile function as an outcome, which is meaningfully different from research examining broader vascular markers alone, though it's worth noting this finding comes from a single, relatively modest trial rather than a larger, well-replicated body of confirmatory research across multiple independent studies. This means the overall evidence here is most accurately described as moderate rather than strongly established, a genuinely important distinction worth understanding rather than glossing over. Roughly 8 ounces of pure, unsweetened pomegranate juice consumed daily aligns reasonably well with what's actually been used in the supporting clinical research discussed here. Number 3 on this list. Hibiscus tea has genuinely accumulated meaningful research specifically around blood pressure regulation, which carries direct relevance to today's broader topic, given how closely blood pressure connects to healthy, responsive blood vessel function generally. Multiple controlled studies have consistently found meaningful reductions in blood pressure among participants regularly consuming hibiscus tea over a period of several weeks, working through mechanisms involving both mild diuretic effects and genuine support for blood vessel relaxation more broadly. This particular connection to erectile function specifically is considerably more indirect than what we discussed regarding beets or pomegranate, since hibiscus works primarily through general cardiovascular support rather than through a direct nitric oxide pathway specifically. Men currently taking prescribed blood pressure medication should be genuinely specifically cautious here, since combining hibiscus tea with prescription antihypertensive medication can occasionally lower blood pressure meaningfully more than intended by either treatment alone. This is a combination genuinely worth discussing directly with your doctor before adding hibiscus tea as a consistent daily habit, particularly if you're already managing your blood pressure through prescribed medication. We're now roughly halfway through this entire video, and this represents a genuinely meaningful shift in what we're discussing going forward. Everything covered up to this specific point involves options carrying more established, directly relevant research behind them. What follows moves toward options that carry a genuinely reasonable underlying biological mechanism, but considerably less extensive human clinical data specifically tied to today's core topic, meaning the confidence level appropriately shifts somewhat as we continue. Number 4 on this list. Lemon juice doesn't actually work through the nitric oxide pathway directly the way each of the previous 3 options genuinely does. Its relevance here is considerably more general in nature, supporting overall hydration palatability, which matters practically since many men simply drink more water when it tastes better, and providing vitamin C, which does carry some documented antioxidant support for vascular tissue generally. That said, the evidence specifically connecting lemon to meaningfully improved nitric oxide production or erectile function directly is genuinely limited rather than well established through dedicated research. It's included here specifically because it's commonly marketed alongside this broader topic online, and it's worth being genuinely clear and honest that its actual evidence-based connection is considerably weaker than what we've discussed regarding beets, pomegranate, or hibiscus specifically. Number 5 on this list, adding watermelon juice or concentrated citrulline powder directly to water works through a genuinely distinct mechanism from each of the nitrate-based options discussed earlier in this video. Citrulline is an amino acid that your body converts into arginine through its own separate metabolic pathway, and arginine subsequently supports nitric oxide production through a mechanism that's genuinely separate from, though complementary to, the nitrate pathway discussed earlier regarding beets specifically. Research examining citrulline supplementation has consistently found meaningful improvements across various measures of vascular function, and several smaller studies specifically examining mild erectile dysfunction found modest but genuine symptom improvement following citrulline supplementation over a period of several weeks. Watermelon rind specifically contains a meaningfully higher concentration of citrulline than the flesh most people actually eat, though flesh-based juice still provides a genuinely meaningful amount alongside excellent hydration benefit. Combining this citrulline-based option with a nitrate source like beets, rather than exclusively choosing just one or the other, works through genuinely complementary rather than redundant mechanisms, since one option provides raw nitrate material directly, while the other provides a separate arginine precursor supporting a genuinely distinct step in the broader nitric oxide production process. Before continuing to the final point discussed in this video, if you want a considerably broader framework connecting nutrition, vascular health, and testosterone together after 40, Dr. Emily Carter's Guide, The Iron Age, the complete blueprint to reclaiming testosterone, strength, vitality after 40, covers testosterone, strength, energy, and vitality across 9 focused chapters within a concise 14-page format. It's priced at $49.99. with the link provided directly with this video. It's educational in nature, not a replacement for individualized medical care, but it genuinely offers a clear framework for understanding how these various interrelated systems actually connect to one another, rather than existing as isolated, unrelated concerns. Here's the specific point that most videos covering this general topic skip over entirely, despite how genuinely important it actually is. None of the additions discussed throughout this video meaningfully matter if they're consumed alongside something that actively blocks their intended effect from occurring in the first place. Beyond antibacterial mouthwash, already mentioned specifically regarding beets earlier in this video, proton pump inhibitors, a genuinely common class of medication prescribed for acid reflux, can meaningfully reduce the oral bacterial activity specifically needed for that crucial nitrate to nitrite conversion step central to how beets and other nitrate-based sources actually work within your body. This doesn't mean stopping any prescribed medication on your own initiative, which can be genuinely risky and should never be done without direct medical guidance. It means genuinely understanding that if you happen to be taking this particular type of medication regularly, the nitrate-based options discussed today, beets primarily, may reasonably provide meaningfully less benefit than you'd otherwise expect, making citrulline-based or antioxidant-based options like pomegranate comparatively more relevant and worthwhile, specifically for you given your individual medication situation. This represents a genuinely useful, individualized distinction worth discussing directly with your doctor rather than simply assuming every option discussed throughout this video works identically well regardless of your own specific medication list and health circumstances. None of the additions discussed throughout this entire video genuinely treat erectile dysfunction stemming from significant underlying cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or clinically low testosterone entirely on their own. They genuinely support the same underlying vascular mechanisms relevant to these broader conditions, but they don't replace proper medical evaluation when symptoms are persistent or genuinely significant in nature. If you're currently experiencing ongoing, meaningful erectile difficulty that genuinely warrants a direct conversation with your doctor, including relevant blood work and an appropriate cardiovascular assessment, rather than relying exclusively on dietary additions alone, however well supported by research those specific additions might individually be. Bringing everything discussed throughout this entire video together into one clear, practical summary, beetroot carries the strongest, most directly relevant evidence for nitric oxide support, specifically among everything we've covered today. Pomegranate carries moderate, genuinely clinically specific evidence for erectile function through a distinct complementary mechanism from beets. Hibiscus carries moderate evidence specifically for blood pressure support alongside real, meaningful medication interaction risk, genuinely worth taking seriously if you're on prescribed blood pressure medication. Lemon's actual connection to this specific topic is limited and largely indirect compared to the other options discussed. Citrulline-rich watermelon carries moderate evidence through a genuinely distinct pathway from the nitrate-based options discussed earlier. Men currently taking blood pressure medication, prescribed blood thinners, or acid reflux medication should genuinely discuss any of these specific additions directly with their doctor before making them a consistent daily habit, given the meaningful interaction considerations discussed throughout this entire video. It's worth understanding that not every bottle of beet juice or every beetroot powder on a store shelf delivers an equivalent nitrate dose, and this distinction genuinely matters if you're specifically trying to apply the research discussed throughout this video rather than just going through the motions of adding something to your water. Nitrate content in beets varies meaningfully based on growing conditions, soil quality, and how the beets were processed before reaching a bottle or a container of powder. Some commercial beet juice products are diluted considerably with other juices or water to improve taste, which meaningfully reduces the actual nitrate dose per serving compared to a concentrated, minimally processed product. When selecting a beet juice or powder specifically for this purpose, looking for products that list nitrate content directly on the label, some specialty and sports nutrition brands do this given the established research on athletic performance, gives you considerably more confidence that you're actually consuming an amount comparable to what's been used in the supporting clinical research discussed earlier. Products without this information aren't necessarily ineffective, but you're working with less certainty about the actual dose you're receiving, which matters if consistency and predictable effect are genuinely important to you. A reasonable question worth addressing directly involves whether cooked beets, eaten as food rather than consumed as juice, provide a comparable benefit. Research examining this specifically finds that boiling beets in a large volume of water can leach out a meaningful portion of their nitrate content into the cooking water, which typically gets discarded, similar to the pattern discussed with leafy greens in other nutrition contexts. Roasting or steaming beets with minimal liquid preserves considerably more of their nitrate content compared to boiling specifically. That said, juice and concentrated powder remain the most practical, consistent way to reach the specific doses used in the clinical research discussed throughout this video, since matching that same nitrate amount through whole cooked beets alone would require a meaningfully larger serving than most people would reasonably eat on a regular, sustained daily basis. This doesn't mean whole beets lack value as part of a generally healthy diet, but for the specific targeted purpose discussed throughout this video, juice or powder represents the more practical, evidence-aligned approach for most men. It's worth stepping back to emphasize that everything discussed throughout this video connects to considerably more than erectile function alone, even though that's understandably the primary concern that brought most viewers to this specific video. The exact same vascular mechanisms, healthy nitric oxide production, responsive endothelial function, are directly responsible for your broader cardiovascular health overall, including your long-term risk of heart attack, stroke, and general cardiovascular disease as you continue aging. This is genuinely one of the reasons this particular topic carries meaningful clinical significance beyond the specific concern that brought most viewers here today. Erectile function often serves as an early visible signal of broader vascular health, sometimes appearing years before other, more serious cardiovascular symptoms become clinically apparent. This means that supporting these specific mechanisms through the additions discussed throughout this video doesn't just offer a narrow, isolated benefit limited to one specific area. It's genuinely supporting your overall cardiovascular health and longevity simultaneously, which is precisely why I consider this one of the more genuinely valuable, efficient interventions available, addressing multiple important health outcomes through a single, consistent daily habit rather than requiring several entirely separate approaches. I want to address something that genuinely matters more than most of the specific details discussed throughout this video. The research supporting nitrate-rich additions and their connection to vascular health and erectile function reflects consistent, sustained intake over weeks and months, not occasional or sporadic consumption reached for only when specifically remembered. A single glass of beet juice on an otherwise typical day provides a genuinely measurable temporary boost in nitric oxide availability in the hours immediately following that specific glass, but this effect doesn't accumulate into lasting, meaningful vascular benefit without consistent, regular repetition sustained over a genuinely meaningful period of time. This is precisely why building whichever option you choose into a genuinely consistent daily habit, similar to any other foundational health practice discussed elsewhere on this channel, produces considerably better, more reliable results than an inconsistent approach where the habit happens for a few days, gets forgotten for a week or two, and then resumes sporadically without any real sustained pattern. Men who see genuinely meaningful, lasting improvement across the outcomes discussed throughout this video are, without real exception, the ones who treated whichever addition they chose as a consistent daily habit rather than an occasional afterthought reached for only during a particularly motivated week. A reasonable question worth addressing directly involves whether taking a concentrated nitric oxide supplement, widely marketed and sold specifically for this purpose, offers any meaningful advantage over the whole food and beverage-based approach discussed throughout this video. Many commercial nitric oxide supplements combine several of the specific compounds already discussed, beet extract, citrulline, sometimes pomegranate extract as well, into a single concentrated product which offers genuine convenience compared to managing several separate additions individually throughout your day. The genuine consideration worth understanding here involves quality control and dosing transparency, both of which vary considerably across the broader supplement industry given its comparatively limited regulatory oversight relative to pharmaceutical products specifically. Choosing a supplement from a reputable manufacturer that provides third-party testing and clearly discloses the actual dose of each specific active ingredient offers a reasonable alternative to the whole food approach discussed throughout this video, particularly for men who find a single daily supplement more sustainable and easier to maintain consistently than managing several separate juices or powders individually. Neither approach is inherently superior across the board. The whole food and beverage approach discussed throughout this video offers additional nutritional benefits beyond the specific compounds being targeted, fiber, vitamins, and other beneficial plant compounds, while a well-formulated supplement offers genuine convenience and typically more precise, consistent dosing. One genuine mistake worth addressing directly involves treating the 6 options discussed throughout this video as though combining all of them simultaneously multiplies the overall benefit proportionally. This isn't genuinely how the underlying research actually works. Combining beet juice, pomegranate juice, hibiscus tea, lemon and watermelon, or citrulline all into the same daily routine doesn't simply stack their individual research-supported benefits into one dramatically amplified super effect. It meaningfully increases your total daily sugar and calorie intake if you're combining multiple juices specifically. And it meaningfully increases the overall complexity of any potential medication interaction, since you're now combining several compounds with their own individual effects on blood pressure and blood vessel function simultaneously, rather than one addition at a time where the individual supporting research more directly and clearly applies. The more genuinely evidence-aligned approach involves choosing one, or at most two complementary options specifically. Beetroot, alongside citrulline-rich watermelon, represents a reasonable complementary combination given their genuinely distinct mechanisms discussed earlier in this video, and maintaining consistent, sustained use of that specific choice over a period of several weeks to months, rather than attempting to combine everything discussed throughout this entire video simultaneously and hoping for some dramatically compounded effect that the actual underlying research doesn't genuinely describe or support. Setting genuinely honest, realistic expectations matters considerably here, since a great deal of marketing content surrounding this general topic implies immediate, dramatic results that simply don't reflect how these underlying physiological mechanisms actually work in practice. For the acute short-term vascular effects discussed in the beet juice research specifically, some measurable change in blood flow markers can appear within just a few hours of consumption in controlled research settings. However, this represents a temporary, short-lived effect rather than a lasting, cumulative improvement in your baseline vascular health and function. For the more meaningful, lasting improvements in overall endothelial function and erectile function specifically discussed throughout this video, research generally points toward a period of several weeks to a couple of months of consistent, sustained daily intake before genuinely noticeable lasting change reliably develops. This mirrors a pattern discussed consistently across many other topics covered on this channel. Sustainable, boring, day-after-day consistency genuinely outperforms occasional, intense effort in nearly every case. And this particular topic is genuinely no exception to that broader, consistently observed pattern. I want to close this additional section with some genuinely practical guidance on actually building whichever option you choose into a sustainable daily habit, since understanding the underlying research is only genuinely useful if it actually translates into consistent, real-world action rather than simply remaining an interesting fact you heard once. Keeping a bottle of beet juice or a container of your chosen powder somewhere you'll actually see it daily, next to your morning coffee maker, in a visible spot in your refrigerator, tends to produce considerably better long-term consistency than treating it as a separate, easily forgotten task layered onto an already busy morning routine. Pairing your chosen addition with an existing daily habit you already reliably maintain, taking it alongside your morning vitamins or drinking it immediately after your regular morning workout, tends to produce meaningfully better consistency over the following weeks and months than treating it as an entirely new, standalone habit you need to consciously remember and build completely from scratch. The men who see the most genuinely meaningful, lasting results discussed throughout this video are, without real exception, the ones who successfully integrated their chosen option into an existing daily routine rather than treating it as one more separate task competing for attention alongside everything else already demanding their time and focus each day. Closing. So here's the genuine bottom line to take away from everything discussed throughout this video. Plain water hydrates you effectively, which genuinely matters on its own, but specific evidence-backed additions can meaningfully support the nitric oxide production your body relies on for genuinely healthy blood flow, particularly relevant after 50, specifically as your body's natural production becomes measurably less efficient with age. 3 practical takeaways worth carrying forward from today. Start specifically with beetroot, given it carries the strongest and most direct evidence among everything discussed throughout this video. Avoid antibacterial mouthwash around the same general time if you're using nitrate-based options like beets specifically, and genuinely check with your doctor before combining any of these additions with existing blood pressure medication or prescribed blood thinners. If this video addressed something you genuinely wondered about but never had explained clearly before, that's exactly why this content exists in the first place. The Iron Age Guide is linked directly with this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.